All right. Welcome, Thrashers and Pit Masters. My name is Postmortem. As far as you're concerned, really, really cool interview for you today, Mr. Andrea Ferro of Lacuna Coil. Andrea, how are you, sir?
Hello, hello. I'm good. Thank you. I'm very good.
All right, we're gonna jump right into this here. I listened the way I prepared for this. I listened to Comalize the original, and then I went and listened to the corresponding track on Comalize XX. And
Okay.
it's definitely given a sleek look. It's more current with Lacuna Coil's current sound, I think, the newer ones.
Yeah.
What was the intent behind revisiting this specific album?
Yeah. Basically, obviously, we knew that the anniversary was coming, and so the record label started throwing some ideas, like doing a remaster of the record. But normally, when you do a remaster, basically you compress all the audio files and make them sound louder. So it's not much of a difference, to be honest. So we decided instead of just doing that, and just because Comalize has been such an important record for in our career, to try and give it a go to try to just rework all the songs with slight different arrangements, with more contemporary sound, with arrangement that fits the current lineup that only has one guitar, so a little bit more of synth arrangement and a little bit less of the guitar arrangement, a little bit more of the guitar solo. So we try to play around. Some songs are closer to the originals, some others are a bit more experimental, let's say. So we wanted to try something different to challenge ourselves, challenge our listeners as well. But obviously, we knew that we were touching holy grail, for many fans is the first album when they discovered the band for the first time. And so we tried, and we are pretty happy with the result. And in the end of the day, we still have both version of the album available always. So if you like the new version as well, that's great. If you don't, the old one is still there. We're not gonna
Yeah,
change
cool.
it.
Do you think these new changes that the band has made to the album are translating pretty well with fans?
I think so. So far, I heard from a lot of people that we played one show here in our hometown in Italy, Milan, called Coma Live, where we play all of the new versions of the album. And there were a lot of new fans, but also a lot of the classic fans that have been following the band since Coma Live. And they were all pretty happy with the results, because they knew that they were not gonna erase the old one, but they also appreciate the new version, which is more close to what we do now as a band. And so far so good. I mean, most of the comments have been pretty positive, and it is what it is. In the end of the day, we wanted to try to do this to celebrate. And if I think it's something a bit more interesting than just do a remaster of the record, which is okay, but it's nothing new.
Yeah, still cool though. It was cool to hear Comalize because I grew up hearing bits and pieces of it because the album is nearly as old as I am. I think that it's 20 years old. I just turned 23 a couple of weeks ago, so so I
That's
got to
pretty.
hear it twice. All right, let's
Yeah,
see.
actually, even our current drummer Richard, he was when Comalize was released, he was still in school. He was like 12 years old or something like that. So obviously, even for him, the first Lacuna Coil record he really enjoyed. It wasn't Comalize because obviously he grew up with later versions of the band. So he started with like Dark Adrenaline or something later. And so for many people, Comalize it's a sacred record, but for many others are not because so much time has passed. That we have a new generation of people that just barely know the old one.
Yeah, definitely a good one. I like it a lot. But I was watching some other interviews. Christina mentioned that the process of working on Comalize XX was in a way more complicated than approaching a brand new album. Do you feel the same way?
And it's for some aspect, yes, because especially for Marco, our bass player, which is the main songwriter and the guy who works most of the music, it was hard to understand the point of no return. There's a point where you change the song too much and you don't recognize it anymore. So there's a thin line, or how much you can push yourself further away from the original, or how much you should stay inside. So that was to do that, to solve this problem, he started working with Heaven's Alive, the first song, which is the most famous song of the record. And so we say, okay, if I can take Heaven's Alive out of the way, then we can work easily, because that was the most difficult one, the one with most pressure on. And since we knew that we couldn't make it a stronger single than it was, we decided to go in another way and approach it more as a more epic song, a little bit more doomy, more atmospheric in the new version. And so we've solved the problem by just don't try to make it another single like it was, you know.
Hmm.
Some other song it was more easy, like Swamped is probably closer to the original one. Some other we like Daylight Dancers more experimental. Altogether, I think it's been almost like to do a complete new album,
Hmm.
almost.
Nearly, yeah, because I feel like remaking an album and changing it on purpose, it seems like a slippery slope to be like, oh, we're done, and then it sounds like just new music. It just sounds like a completely different song, you know. So
Exactly.
were there any kind of like restrictions that the band was like, okay, this doesn't change, we want to stay within this range, or was it something like, okay, we're just gonna do what we want, or was there kind of process there?
No, it was there was, as I say, there was this thin line to understand where you could go and where you couldn't, and it wasn't easy to draw because obviously when you touch the material and you work and it comes very cool, so you just go for it. But then when you realize that this is not nothing of the original song anymore, you know? So more or less the vocal lines, obviously the lyrics are identical. Vocal lines are more or less very similar, although with slight different arrangement here and there, or more extreme in the way we sung it, but not completely different. So we didn't touch so much those. But then it depends from song to song. I think some are very recognizable, some are a little bit more to listen to before you get which one is it. But overall, it's been fun to do it for sure, you know, and understand that okay, you don't have to have a complete different song. You know, there is a point where you have to stop for sure.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like it's refreshing for a lot of fans, especially not being able to tour for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden this thing they love so much has gotten new energy to it, and now you get to tour and they get to hear it live. So I have to imagine the fan reaction, the tours, all the merchandise for the new album, that's got to be flying out the window right now.
Yeah, it's very good. And as I say, there's also a good chance for us to play more of the old songs that normally we wouldn't include in the set list because it's too old and not everybody knows it. So instead of just playing Evans Alliance one, we can throw in some other that we haven't played in a while, you know, in this new version. And also overall for us, it was a good way to restart jamming together and doing songwriting together instead of going straight away to a new album, which would be more pressure and more complicated after 2 years of not touring, of not getting many inputs, you know. And we felt that we weren't ready for a complete new album because we didn't tour, we stayed home. So inspiration wasn't really flowing for us because we get a lot of inspiration also from touring, from traveling around the world, from listening to new bands, from, you know, there's so many different inputs that we didn't get for those 2 years. So we felt kind of flat, and we said it's better we work something else, so like this project that gave us the same way of restarting, jamming, arranging, recording, and but without the same pressure we normally had with a complete new record. So it was a good way to restart for sure.
Definitely, definitely awesome. Okay, cool. Well, I was thinking about the set list and how that's going to translate live. Is there a specific like version of Comalize different songs that you want to use in the set list going forward, or are you guys planning on playing both sets of the same song? Is there a selection process for it?
No, no, I think there's only one song that totally makes sense to play in the old way, which is Heaven's Alive, because obviously that's one of our biggest songs. So we maybe right now we can play the new version, but then maybe later on we're gonna go back to the original one. Maybe sometimes switch it around. But that makes sense. The other ones, I don't think there's so much need because we already were playing only two or three from Comalize maximum in a set. So we can play Swamp, which is, as I say, it's a modern version of the song, but it's not something you can't recognize or so much different, to be honest. So and so for the future, we'll see. But I believe the one that we need to stick to the original is probably Heaven's Alive. The rest, I think, we can play the new ones, which are not as different as you might think, you know. And we don't play so many. Maybe it's a good excuse to play more of the Comalize songs in the future set list.
Oh
They give
yeah.
us more chance.
Mhm. Was there something that you when you record? I know it's a different lineup now. When you originally recorded Coma Lies, was there something you were like, man, I really wanted to do this on this song? Something you didn't get to do that you got to scratch that itch as an artist 20 years later?
Maybe just the vocals sometimes. Obviously, production nowadays sounds bigger and heavier because there's different systems, and Comalize was totally recorded in analog on tape, and so there was no Pro Tools, nothing like that. So everything has to be done in the studio, seeing 100 times until it's good, and so obviously nowadays would be much different to record the same album. But maybe the vocals wise, we would have maybe pushed a little bit more on the heavy vocals, and maybe some of the arrangement could have been a little heavier as well. But I think it is what it is. When it was coming out, it was perfect and it worked really well for everybody. So I wouldn't go back and retouch it. I'm more of the idea. Okay, now I can do something else. I'll do it for the next record.
Mhm.
Or in a special occasion like this. Okay, it kind of makes sense, but that's it. I
Yeah.
wouldn't touch the past too much.
Yeah, and I was looking at the differences too physically on the cover for the new album versus the old album, which is what I believe is to be a sunflower on the second album on Comalize XX. Was there any kind of inspiration behind that? Because I do know one of the band members actually took that picture. It slipped me now who it was,
Yeah,
but
yeah, it was Marco, our bass player. He took the picture of the flower in this countryside. Obviously, it looks more like a dead flower compared to the one from the original version, because we wanted to represent kind of the time has passed, and these 20 years have become somehow more unsure times, more extreme times. We are living in the war now back in Europe. We're having a lot of uncertainty economically wise, economic and energetic crisis. Times are different and weird in a way compared to 2002 when we came out with the original. So we thought we wanted to give a little less dreamy and more in your face kind of impact from the cover, like the music it is. Like the new version of the music is more heavy, is more goth if you want, and it's more straight to the point. So I think the years have passed, and this new version of the album also, in retrospect, reflects the era we're living right now, the times we're living, which are more somehow uncertain and extreme in a way.
yeah, a lot of political unrest in Europe now, which living in the US, we're kind of isolated here on our own little corner of the world. And so when I see things that are going on over there, I can only imagine, the kind of things that you would have to think about that you would normally think of in day-to-day life, especially since there's potential war. It's right there,
Yeah.
and it makes me think of, like, if you like Megadeth, they have their Peace Cells album was written in the middle of political unrest, and I get that same
Yeah.
energy from Comalize XX, thinking, okay, we're addressing this, and this is how we express how we feel, what we're doing with this new album, but we're going to take something that we already love and just throw our modern spin on it. So it's got
Yeah.
a really special place for me. I love the album so much. And as far as I know, you guys are touring right now. Are you fixing to go tour Australia with Gojira, right? I saw that too.
Yeah, we're doing a little bit of Southeast Asia and Australia. Australia, we have 6 shows. 3 are as part of a lineup of a festival, which is called Good Things Festival, and it features Bring Me the Horizon, Deftones, NoFX, Ginger, Sabaton, Oz, and tons of other bands.
Mhm.
And that's 3 shows around Australia. And then the other 3 shows are we're doing off dates with Gojira, which is also part of the festival as well, and we support them in those 3 shows as well. And then we got shows in the Philippines, in Jakarta, Indonesia, Singapore, Manila, Philippines, and then Tokyo is the last show in Japan.
I don't see a lot of bands that go that far. I know they say Southeast Asia, and then they say something, really first world, or they say world tour, and then half the dates are US dates. It's not really a world tour, you know what I mean? So it's cool to
Yeah.
see you guys go into like a place like the Philippines, because I can't imagine they get a lot of metal shows down there.
No, but there's a lot of metalheads. We've been there, let's say before the pandemic, maybe 6 years ago. Yeah, when we played a big stadium in Manila, which was Haas and Born of Osiris, and a lot of American and European bands in the festival. And it was great. It was like 20,000 people in the stadium screaming, having fun. And we played places like India. We played Vietnam. So we metal is everywhere. The kids that love metal, they're like the new world music. You can go anywhere in the world, and there's always gonna be the kid that wanna love to listen to metal. We got mails from Africa, from all the countries that you wouldn't expect maybe to have a metal scene. And sometimes it's difficult to go because of political situation. And so sometimes we wish we could do even more, but we got requests from everywhere. Like we could really play in Egypt, like everywhere. We got mails from all the places. It's just sometimes it's hard to put it together.
Yeah, and I used to work at Hot Topic too a while back while I was in high school, and I remember they put a snippet in their TV of Live from the Apocalypse, and
Yeah.
I remember watching it and stopping what I was doing and thinking, okay, I haven't heard this band, but why have I not heard of it yet? And I'm like fresh out of high school, and I'm like, wow, that's cool. So I went back and I listened to it, and since then, I've been a big fan. So it was really cool when they gave me the opportunity to do the interview, and I was like, wait a minute. So I've seen Live from the Apocalypse. I don't even know how many times sitting there watching it at work, and then they were like, "Hey, do you want to talk to him?" I'm like, "Yeah, let me do it, 100%." So it was really cool to get that opportunity. But anyway,
Actually, on the last American tour we did in April, May with Apocalyptica, I was walking in a mall. I went inside the Hot Topic, and the guy said, "Are you the guy from the video?" And he showed me the video inside the store that was showing Layers of Time, our song Layers of Time. Oh, yeah, it's you. It's the same guy in the video. And it was
yeah.
fun because he never heard of the band, but now he knew because obviously there's a new generation of people that that didn't grow up with all the same bands from the mid 2000 when we were getting popular in the States for the first time. And it's great to see nowadays.
Yeah, and I think you actually ran into my boss in Lubbock in Texas at a Hot Topic. So it was
All right, possible. Yeah,
he came back and he was like, they're just walking around in the mall. And it's weird
yeah.
because in Texas, I heard you say the same thing about Italy. The metal scene is just not very big here. So when
Hmm.
you see that, bands like Lacuna Coil walking around and Forest is coming through, 200 Saboons is coming through. So and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. They're just hanging out in the mall. And there's a
Yeah.
little bit of a detachment there because I've seen that specific song Apocalypse from Live from the Apocalypse a bunch of times. I've seen it more times than I can count. So it was so awesome to get that opportunity. But hey, that's all I have for you right now. You can pick up Comalize right now via Century Media Records, one of my favorite records for the year. I think I've got it queued up in the car right now. As soon as I get out of here, I'm gonna go home and I got it queued up right now. But hey, thank you so much, man.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Hopefully see you on the road.
we'll get there. Definitely. I'm gonna get there. Perfect. Let's stop this.